Thank you. And it's a privilege to share the stage here with colleagues and friends, past and present. I come at this topic not as an Asia expert, but as a historian and student of strategy with great interest in Asia. And so my framework is fundamentally historical and strategic. So with all apologies to Stanley Roth, the central feature of the Asian strategic environment today is the rise of China and reactions to it. Put in a historical perspective, this situation is but the most recent example of a long-term peacetime competition between a rising power and an established power. Now, I use the term competition advisedly. In my view, the endpoints of the spectrum of relations between powers is not competition and cooperation, but conflict and cooperation, with competition somewhere in the middle. The U.S.-China relationship is not conflictual, but neither is it entirely cooperative. In many ways, the relationship resembles interactions between rising and dominant powers in the past. I could go all the way back to ancient Greece, but in the interest of time, it shares many features of the competition between Britain and the United States in the 19th and 20th centuries, Britain and Germany in the 19th and 20th centuries, the United States and Japan in the 20th century, and the United States and the Soviet Union also in the 20th century. And to say that it's a long-term competition is not to prejudge its outcome, as the list that I've just given you shows. The competition between Britain and the United States ended amicably for both sides. That between Britain and Germany resulted in 2 world wars. That between the United States and Japan resulted in a world war. And in fact, the Cold War, the competition between the United States and Soviet Union, was, if anything, a mid-case. It didn't lead to general war, thank goodness, but neither was it conflict-free. So wherever we are now, I think we need to think about how this situation may unfold over the long term. Now, the military manifestation of China's rise is China's military modernization and responses to it. The Defense Department's China military power reports have amply documented the course of Chinese military modernization over the years, and I, among others, eagerly await the release of the 2010 military power report. Now, my colleague David Lampton is concerned that we're overestimating Chinese military power. I'm actually concerned that we're underestimating it, because I think what has been made public of the record shows that the scope and pace of that modernization has exceeded expectations. As Admiral Robert Willard, then the incoming commander of U.S. Pacific Command, told an interviewer in October 2009, quote, "In the past decade or so, China has exceeded most of our intelligence estimates of their military capability and capacity every year. They've grown at an unprecedented rate in those capabilities, and they've developed some asymmetric capabilities that are concerning to the region, some anti-access capabilities, and so on." End quote. Now, that fact should be a concern, but it shouldn't be a surprise. Historically, it's often the case that observers tend to underestimate the rise of regional powers. That was certainly the case of U.S. and British observers of Japan during the early decades of the 20th century. So on the one hand, we have certainly a perception of rising Chinese power. There's also a perception on the other side that the United States is preoccupied with the Middle East, that we've become a Middle Eastern power rather than being a global power. And I think what we see as the beginning of some hedging and balancing going on within the region. Certainly the 2008 Australian Defence White Paper talks about Australia having to balance Chinese power, and talks with some uncertainty about the future U.S. role in the region. I don't share that view, for what it's worth, but other states in the region do have their concerns. Now, certain features of Chinese military modernization are particularly worrisome, and here I think we do need to differentiate between modernization per se and innovation. When I say modernization per se, I mean the normal process of replacing older tanks with newer tanks and older helicopters with newer helicopters. China's doing a lot of that, but it's also innovating. It's also acquiring qualitatively new capabilities. Many of them are focused on Taiwan contingency, and many of those are specifically targeted on U.S. capabilities. Again, the China military power reports talk about China's ballistic missile program. China has the most active ballistic missile program in the world, and is developing and deploying at a rate of about 100 missiles a year, missiles with improved range, accuracies, and payloads, missiles that not only hold at risk Taiwan, but also U.S. bases in the Western Pacific. David's already mentioned the Chinese ASAT test in January of 2007, and then the somewhat ambiguous test earlier this year that the Chinese announced as a ballistic missile defense test. And then there's the development of an anti-ship ballistic missile, and Admiral Willard testified several months ago that that weapon has been tested. This is all a part of what I mentioned earlier, in which what the Defense Department has characterized as an anti-access area denial strategy. And the Quadrennial Defense Review, the 2010 Quadrennial Defense Review, speaks eloquently about this, and it's worth quoting just for a second. Quote, anti-access strategies seek to deny outside countries the ability to project power into a region, therefore allowing aggression or other destabilizing actions to be conducted by the anti-access power. Without dominant U.S. capabilities to project power, the integrity of U.S. alliances and security partnerships could be called into question, reducing U.S. security and influence and increasing the possibility of conflict. I think the QDR has it exactly right, that these military developments are ultimately of political concern. They call into question, or could call into question, our alliance commitments. They could call into question the stability of the region and freedom of access, which the United States has been the guarantor of for decades. In some ways, China's acquisition and development of anti-access capabilities is analogous to the Soviet Union's deployment of intermediate-range missiles in Europe and Asia in the 1980s. Those missiles were a military capability, but they posed a threat and a challenge to our alliances. As we know, in that case, NATO and the United States prevailed. Now, hopefully, we will also prevail when it comes to ensuring our ability to project power and ensure stability in the face of these challenges. Well, just to conclude very briefly, this is an issue that is bigger than the Asia Studies community, and however big NBR is, and it's an impressive group, this is an issue that's bigger than NBR. I think what's needed, and what will be needed increasingly in the future, is a richer conversation between Asia scholars and folks like me, students of strategic studies with an interest in Asia. Because I think each community has a lot to bring to the table, but neither community in and of itself can really deal with these issues of geopolitics and geostrategy in Asia in the future. So with that, thank you for your attention. Look forward to your comments.
Thank you very much.